Welcome to Vanadium. I'm going to read a quote. While asleep, I had an unusual experience. There was a red screen, formed by flowing blood, as it were. I was observing it. Suddenly a hand began to write on the screen. I became all attention. That hand wrote a number of elliptical integrals. They stuck to my mind. As soon as I woke up, I committed them to writing. Srinivasa Ramanujan, is later in life, in about around 1910, Indian Mathematician. This is he's describing one of his great discoveries, a function to calculate pi that's actually still used today to calculate pi for a lot of high-level mathematical and technical functions. So Ramanujan, you can remember him in Good Will Hunting, the professor who hangs out with Will in the movie, talks about Ramanujan growing up in a village and coming up with all these mathematical ideas basically on his own. He had one sort of very rudimentary textbook, but basically invented mathematics, a whole world of his own. He basically educated himself and then expanded on his education and developed a whole bunch of new ideas that are still being used in the field. He unfortunately died at a very young age, 32. Still accomplished a whole lot and still a visionary still regarded as visionary. And his ideas are still being implemented and still being kind of pondered over. Because some of them, I think he's so ahead of his time that I think now people are kind of looking at some of the things they didn't really even understand and realizing, wow, this is really useful and valuable. And he was a real prodigy. So he is describing an idea that came to him in a dream. So this episode of Vanadium is about dreams and how I think, and I've talked to a lot of other people who believe that dreams are not just garbage. They're not just some sort of just mental background noise or just residue from the daily activities, that there is something deep and something that otherworldly about dreams, something that's not just a function of your own intellect and your own personality, your own soul, but is actually something that's involves like a higher level interaction with all, fellow man and all their life forms, sort of like this Jungian idea of a collective unconscious. And I think there's something to that. So I think that the dream world is sort of a pool of ideas and consciousness and archetypes and ideas that you can pull from. And that's what I think Ramanujan is saying as well, that he doesn't even fully take credit. He was a very religious man. He didn't really fully take credit for his ideas. He really gave credit to basically the gods, the universe, divinely inspiring him, and that they just handed him. He just sort of accepted them, and he was able to scribble them down. When some of us, you can find dreams are really fleeting. So you can find that your mind is really working against you when you try to remember your dreams. And I've been fascinated my whole life. So I've been getting better at remembering my dreams. And over the last 10 years, I've developed kind of an interesting sort of lucid dreaming landscape. And I've touched on this in previous podcasts, but I have a dream world that it's not really a recurring dream. It's a whole other reality that I visit every night when I go to sleep. And I have for years. And I have people that I know over there. I have a completely other life. It's a rewarding life. It's an interesting life, much like the one that I live on this side. And I have developed some ideas over there that have enabled me to do things in this reality. And actually, I do take classes over there in my dream world, mystery school as I call it, where I learn about, and I don't retain everything. But I've had similar types of dreams. I'm not putting myself in the same class of human or intellectual as Ramanujan. And actually, I have, there's some other examples. Albert Einstein. Here's a quote. I was sledding with my friends at night. I started to slide down the hill, but my sled started going faster and faster. I was going so fast that I realized I was approaching the speed of light. I looked up at that point and I saw the stars. They were being refracted into colors I'd never seen before. I was filled with a sense of awe and wonder. I understood in some way that I was looking at God. Now that is it's something from Albert Einstein is describing something that he saw in a dream. And that dream inspired him to come up with the special theory of general relativity. So that there are a few examples, and there's another. So those are two very well-known examples. And I'm going to go through a couple of others as well. Auguste Kekule from the chemistry world. People in the organic chemistry world will be familiar, but for other vanadium viewers, Auguste Kekule invented the idea of came up with what the benzene molecule is, that ring-shaped molecule that's sort of the basis for modern organic chemistry. It's the basis for all pharmaceuticals and nanomaterials and everything we do. So it's the ring structure came to Auguste Kekule in a dream as a serpent biting his own tail. And that is a way of describing the resonant electron configuration in the ring pattern. And that's how he interpreted it. And that was the language of the dream. That was the language the dream used to present him with the discovery. And he says that he does not credit himself for the discovery. He says that it was something that was handed to him in dream form. So the benzene molecule. And this is probably the least known, and this is not really a dream, but this is kind of a similar example. Kary Mullis, who unfortunately is not with us anymore. He died in August of 2019. Very, very sad. But he was the inventor of the PCR technique used in all DNA analysis. Polymerase chain reaction. So he was, this article doesn't do it justice, but Kary Mullis, scientist, surfer dude, and LSD aficionado who won a Nobel Prize in chemistry for his discovery of PCR, a technique which has revolutionized DNA research. This is his obituary. This is in the Telegraph. I don't want to think that's not disparaging or anything, but that doesn't do it justice. He didn't discover PCR, he invented PCR. And it's the technique that you can hear that acronym PCR, polymerase chain reaction, used talking about COVID all of the time. So his work is extremely relevant. So what PCR is a way of if there's any amount of DNA in any kind of sample, this chemical will go in and replicate it and cause it to replicate millions and millions and millions of times. So any fragment of DNA is going to be amplified if it's in the environment, if it's in the sample. So it's a way of detecting very small amounts of DNA fragments and amplifying them so you can detect them and you can screen them and analyze them. And Kary Mullis people are going to know that name in the future. He is going to be regarded as on the Albert Einstein level. And it's kind of unfair that he isn't right now. And it's crazy because I found out that he died recently and he didn't even live that far away from where I live right now. And I had no idea Kary Mullis lived in, a pretty fancier area than the side of town that I live on. But, I could have run into him in a coffee shop or something. And he probably wasn't used to people being fans, but I would have known his face to look at him. And I would have been like, oh my God, that's Kary Mullis. But Rupert Sheldrake, who I'm sure the Vanadium audience is familiar with, he described Kary Mullis, I believe, and I hope I'm getting this quote exactly right. He said, he's not your normal kind of scientist. And saying that Kary Mullis was extraordinary even for an extraordinary scientist, which is exactly right. And it's a shame that there will be a movie about him one day. And I hope that the actor, Michael Fassbender, I think should play him. Do Kary Mullis some justice. So there are some examples of how dreams have had real significance in the lives of some really important people. And these dreams have basically made their way through the mind of the dreamer and become manifest in our reality as really important ideas and frameworks of our reality, which is really amazing. They were a dream once to somebody, and now they're part of life. We all live with them. We all use them. So for the last several years, I've been writing a dream journal. And that was something that I wouldn't have, you told me when I was in my early 20s, journal, blah, dream journal, blah. But it's a way to retain your memories. So I think writing things down is a way of kind of beating your brain's way of kind of fooling you with the way that it can disregard memories. So I think that there's so much information that goes through your head in a given day that some of it's going to be disregarded. Some of it should, some of it shouldn't. And you have to make sure that you're really being mindful of what you're keeping, what you're doing in a given day and what's happening. What are you experiencing? How are you feeling? And you're just by a reflective memory, I don't think is really enough, because as you're accumulating data, you're losing data. As you're accumulating data, you're kind of refining it and you're analyzing it, but you're not really looking at all of it very effectively. Sorry, that wasn't very articulate. But the idea is that by writing things down, I think is a good way to expand your consciousness. So I have a dream atlas. And this dream atlas shows the landscape of a place that I go to every single night when I dream. And it's a world where I have friends, I have a car. Incidentally, it's the same car that I have over here. And I have real trouble remembering where I park it. All of the time over there. I'm constantly having trouble finding my car and where it's parked in my dream world. But I actually just graduated mystery graduate school, and now I'm a sort of an very low-level assistant professor in mystery school. And I'm also doing some part-time work in the city that butts up against the mystery school and the ocean in this this landscape. And the place, I have never been able to really retain the name of the city or where it is, but it has features that are consistent and across years of time and every night. It has people that I see regularly, but I don't know who they are, and I've never interacted with them. New people will kind of pop in and out. Actually, someone popped in kind of recently, and sort of a weird thing that maybe I'll talk about at the end. But over there, every night is roughly, it's equivalent to about 2 weeks. It feels about 2 weeks. So every night of sleep, most nights, occasionally it doesn't happen, but most nights that I go to sleep, I'm over on the other side, and I live, it seems like about 1 to 2 weeks of time where I'm living in this kind of small apartment in the city, and I'm teaching classes part-time at mystery school. And I'm probably the dumbest professor and the least accomplished in all of the mystery school faculty. Some of the faculty members there, Michael Faraday, Albert Einstein, who I haven't met yet, apparently is around there. And so he's in another department, and I guess I haven't gotten to that level yet. But he's there, and there's a few people that I've even met in my life today that are basically that I see over there in mystery school at night, and they some of them take classes there, some of them are just in the city hanging around. And I haven't brought this up to anybody to see, are you having any kind of the same dream as me? But one day maybe I will. I don't want to sound crazy, because I realize that this is borderline crazy person talk. But since we're talking about dreams and everybody has dreams, and everybody's dreams are kind of crazy, it's pretty safe to talk about. Still clinically sane, I believe. So the idea of dream worlds and mystery schools, I'm not the only one that has had this idea. And there have been mystery schools that have existed over the eons. And the whole idea behind a mystery school is that not everybody gets to know something. And I don't like that idea. Actually, I like the idea of knowledge being sort of freely disseminated. But the idea of a mystery school is that for some people, knowledge is extremely dangerous, because knowledge is power, and some people can't handle it. It's like the ring. Some people just can't handle the ring. They go nuts. Same with knowledge. Some people are just extremely dangerous, even with a little bit of knowledge. I tried to not be that way, but you have to realize that And as you get more knowledge, you realize your limitations more and more. So as you get more knowledge, you get a greater and greater realization of how much more knowledge you don't have. So that's one of the side effects of getting better at things. And I think it's important, and it keeps you from falling into some of those kind of traps. But the dream world, mystery school, is a place where I get a lot of my ideas, and actually I've gotten ideas that are in the form of U.S. patents right now, developed over there. And I've, it's going to sound really crazy. Oh, screw it. I'll admit it anyway. But, Michael Faraday, one of the inventors of ideas of electromagnetic theory, he's one of the, I don't want to call him a friend because I don't think he likes me that much over there. But I dream about him a lot, and he teaches me a lot, and he helps me grow as a person. But he finds me a little bit annoying, Michael Faraday. And I feel a little bit when I'm hanging out with him like I'm a Michael Faraday hanger-oner. So I'm trying to work on that over there, and I'm trying to develop my own personality, and I'm trying to develop my own street cred, my own scientific mystery school cred, so that I'm not just riding Michael Faraday's coattails. Oh, Michael Faraday. I want to have some of my own respect over there. So there was a period of time, months ago, where these dreams stopped for several weeks. And I was very upset. And it really kind of messed with me, and I felt a great sense of loss. And they did come back. And it was really just down to my sleeping schedule and things like that. But this really comes down to lucid dreaming. And it's a skill that you can develop that I first started to develop when I was a kid, and then I kind of forgot about when I was a teenager. And then I got back into when I kind of settled down into getting a little older and got a kind of like a little less wild in my life. I started to remember some of those experiences as a kid, like my dreams. And now there are some techniques I can give some examples. There are techniques to develop your lucid dreaming skills. And you can develop not control over your dreams, but ability to retain the memory of your dreams, an ability to use your dreams to explore the dreamscape, that environment, and take some of that information. Maybe even take some of the sand from those shores and take a handful back here and use it for something. And so that's my dream. That's I guess the philosopher's stone in alchemy. That's the search. And I think the dream world is that's one of the tools we have. That's one of the places we can go to do some of our work in addition to being in this plane, in this reality. And that's not a common viewpoint for Western scientists, but I think it should be. I think it fits reality much more. It fits the uncertain notions of reality more easily than having a purely materialistic notion of things does, I think. And I think if you were to ask some really great scientists over the years, that they'd admit the same thing. And if you were to ask people, a lot of inventors and artists, where does it come from? Especially people where it happens a lot, repetitively, people that make a career out of taking something that's an inspiration, making it crystallize, and replicating it, and refining it, and getting it out there again and again. And how they personally don't take that much credit for it. And they ascribe almost an otherworldly, supernatural force to it. Something that's outside of them. And they're somebody that's just channeling things. And that's one of the things that I've definitely felt with in all of my creative endeavors, is that it's not so much that you're solving things or you're figuring them out. It's that you learn to listen, and you learn to quiet your brain and your mind enough to be able to hear the right things and be able to be smart enough and quiet enough and listen at the right time to be able to hear the right things. And so I'm just looking at some of my notes here. There have been some evil people that have believed in these ideas too. Some of the basis of the Nazis. I started reading into this, and I came across something called the Thule Society. I was like, "Oh, what's this?" Turns out some of the Nazis were into this stuff too. Very creepy. But these ideas go back to ancient Egypt. So the Eleusinian mystery schools involved doing sort of involved a dream landscape, and a lot of them. Kary Mullis, his ideas weren't really dream related; they're more on the influence of acid, and there were some cults in ancient Egypt that used a fermented barley that probably did have some sort of a lysergic acid like chemical to it that produced some hallucinatory effects, and it was the basis of several cults, the Eleusinian mysteries. So I'll probably talk about that in an upcoming podcast. It's some really fascinating stuff that I've just started learning about. And the Vril Society is another one that's very spooky. Helena Blavatsky, a familiar name to the Vanadium audience. She was a big believer in the mystery schools, and she has a lot of comments about the different mystery schools that have existed over the years, and how a lot of the basically mystical insights and scientific revolutions are sort of the canon of knowledge is contained in this group that sits outside of just basic reality. And it's a faculty of people that sits in basically in another dimension. And they interact with this dimension and also the dream world and potentially a lot of other dimensions. And it's like a college. It's a university. It's a place where things are studied, where ideas are developed, where new things are established, and where there's a lot of conflict about ideas. I definitely get that sense while I'm over there. And there's been a lot of conflict recently. And the conflict has reflected a lot of the conflict that I see over here on Earth with COVID-19 and the shakeup in the world. And really, it's very crazy how it manifests over there in the dream world, because the faculty over there believe that there is a small cult responsible for this COVID. Basically, they believe that it's some sort of bio attack by a cult, a faction of the Chinese government. This is just a dream, folks. This is in the dream world. But that's what the faculty of the mystery school that I belong to in my dream world believe. And so there's interesting stuff. Just to give you some ideas, I try to retain my memories about everything that happens, and I showed you a picture of the dream atlas that I have. But some of the classes that I take over there: spells and poetry, the physics of literature, on light and matter, on lucid dreaming, on storytelling and alchemy, on ceramics. That's interesting, right? So there's a lot of there are a lot of people who are very into ceramics in the mystery school, and it's interesting because I also have a background in ceramics, and the whole reasoning is that ceramic artifacts are some of the most oldest living artifacts that we have, because they're so impervious to aging and time. Ceramics are so tough. The way that they're fired, they make them as more resilient than even the rock. And you can look back, and many of these maybe ancient pottery tells fascinating stories. And I'll show a couple of examples. And they tell the stories of these different mystery schools and these cults, and of hidden knowledge that's been passed down over the centuries and eons. And that's one of the things I love about ceramics, is that you make something, and its whole idea is that it's something that's functional, and it's something that captures the light and might capture it in the same way forever. And it could be something that lasts forever and could tell the same story forever. So this has been Vanadium on dreaming of Mystery School. Thank you very much.